For 6 months, a team of engineers tried to set a car part on fire on purpose, not a metaphor. A bench test. They had the exact component, the exact wiring, the exact connector they believed was burning cars down in driveways across America. And their whole job, between the middle of last summer and the end of last December, was to make that failure happen under controlled conditions so they could understand it. They couldn't do it. 6 months of testing, and the part refused to fail on command. Now, normally, that's the end of the story. A manufacturer that can't reproduce a failure in a lab has a very comfortable position to take. We tested it, we couldn't make it happen. There's no defect here. That is not what happened. By the following spring, the same company concluded the defect was real, filed a formal defect determination with the federal government, and recalled 1,076,999 vehicles, and then told 1 million American owners something that almost never gets said out loud: don't park it in your garage. Sit with that sequence for a second, because it's the entire story. A company could not make the failure happen in a laboratory and recalled 1 million trucks anyway. That doesn't happen because somebody got nervous in a meeting. That happens when the evidence from real driveways gets loud enough to overrule the evidence from the bench. I'm Ellen, this is the Owner's Report, and today we're reading the actual recall file. Quick thing before we get into it, I put together a field manual called What the Record Actually Says About Your Car: Total Loss Math, Repair Estimates, Premiums, the Black Box. It's the paper version of what we do here, and the link is down in the description. That's the whole plug. Let's get to work. Here's what got recalled. In plain terms, model year 2021 through 2025 Jeep Wrangler and Jeep Gladiator, 787,887 Wranglers, 289,112 Gladiators, built between the summer of 2020 and the 2nd of December 2024. The federal campaign number is 26V363. Jeep's own internal number for it is 21D. Write both of those down, because you're going to need one of them at the end of this. The defect, as the agency describes it, sits in the wiring for the electric hydraulic power steering pump. That connection can develop what the documents call high resistance. And that high resistance can heat up nearby combustible material enough to start a vehicle fire. And here's the line that changed this from a normal recall into a park outside recall, even when the vehicle is parked, with the ignition in the off position. Key in your pocket. Truck sitting cold in the driveway. That's the scenario in the federal record. The agency says it's aware of 51 fires and 1 injury likely tied to this issue. No crashes, no fatalities on the confirmed record. Now let me show you what one of these looks like from the inside, because a number like 51 doesn't land the way a driveway does. You get home from a normal drive across town. Nothing wrong. Steering felt fine. No warning lights. No smell. You pull into the garage, shut it off, go inside, make dinner. A couple of hours later, you hear a sound from the garage that doesn't belong, something like air releasing. You open the door from the kitchen, and the smoke is already at shoulder height. That's not me writing a scene. That's the shape of multiple reports sitting in the public complaint file. One owner told the agency their truck burned while parked beside the house after sitting for something like 2 weeks without being driven. 2 weeks, cold engine, nobody in it. That's the reason the advisory isn't get it fixed when you can. It's park it outside, away from your house, away from other vehicles, away from anything that burns until the repair is done. All right, mechanism. This is the part I actually care about, because once you understand it, you'll recognize it in 5 other recalls this decade. Electrical resistance is just how much a path fights the current going through it. Resistance turns electricity into heat. That's not a defect, that's how your toaster works, how the little heating element in your rear window defroster works. It's a feature when you want it. A good electrical connector is designed to have almost none of it. 2 metal surfaces pressed together, tight, large contact area, clean. Current crosses that junction and barely notices it's there. Now make that junction slightly worse. Not broken, just worse. The metal terminals inside spread apart a little, so they're gripping with less force. Or the connector never got pushed fully home on the assembly line, so it's seated but not seated. Or a terminal slowly backs its way out of the housing over years of heat cycles and vibration. The trade calls that terminal pushout. Those 3 failure modes are the ones named in the recall file. Every one of them does the same thing. It shrinks the actual metal-to-metal contact area. And when you force the same current through a smaller contact patch, resistance climbs and heat climbs with it. Right at that one spot, concentrated. Here's the ugly part. Heat makes it worse. Heat oxidizes the contact surfaces. Oxidation adds resistance. More resistance makes more heat. It feeds itself. And it does that slowly, over years, in a connector nobody is ever going to look at on the passenger side of the engine bay, buried under everything else. So the vehicle that burns in year 4 was already sick in year 1. It just wasn't sick enough to notice yet. And that right there is why the bench test failed. You can't easily fake 4 years of heat cycles, road vibration, humidity, and slow oxidation in a lab in 6 months. The failure isn't an event, it's a process. Processes don't perform on demand. Let me back up, because I want to be honest about something I can't tell you. The documents say these fires can start with the ignition off. What the public record does not clearly spell out is exactly what's flowing through that connector when the key is out. Resistance heating needs current. So either there's a live feed at that junction with the vehicle asleep, or something else is going on. I've read the recall report and the agency's alert, and neither one hands you that answer. I could give you a confident-sounding theory. I'm not going to, because I'd be guessing, and a guess said in a confident voice is how bad information gets born. What's documented is the outcome. The precise electrical path with the key off is a question I'd want answered on the record, and it isn't. Okay, next number, and this one confuses people badly. The manufacturer estimates that roughly 0.1% of these vehicles actually have the defect, 1 in 1,000, give or take. Which means out of 1 million and change vehicles, the real number carrying the bad connection is probably somewhere in the low thousands, not 1 million. So why is every single one of them recalled? Because nobody can tell which 1,000. This is the thing most people never get told about how recalls work. A recall population isn't a list of broken vehicles. It's a list of vehicles that can't be ruled out. The manufacturer knows the production window, knows the supplier, knows the part number. The pump came from a Michigan supplier called Dare Auto, but the failure mode is a connection that's slightly imperfect in ways you cannot see from outside. There's no dashboard light for your connector is spread 0.003 of an inch too wide. So the boundary gets drawn by production records, not by inspection. Every vehicle built with the suspect part in the suspect window comes in, and the fix is inspect first, replace if needed. That's why 999 owners will get their truck looked at, told it's fine, and sent home. Those 999 people are going to feel like they wasted a Tuesday. They didn't. They're the price of finding the one. Now, the timeline. This is where I want you paying close attention, because the dates tell a story the press release doesn't. Spring of 2023. The manufacturer's own safety and compliance team opens an internal investigation into engine compartment fires in Wranglers and Gladiators. Not the government, the company, looking at its own field reports. They study it for about a year, and in the spring of 2024, they close it. Their determination, the occurrence rate is low, and this doesn't represent an unreasonable safety risk. That is a legitimate finding under the standard, and I want to be fair about it. Every manufacturer has a stack of open questions at any moment, and most of them genuinely are noise. Closing one isn't misconduct. But then August of 2024 arrives, and the reports start climbing. The same team reopens the file they just closed, and on the 6th of September 2024, the Federal Office of Defects Investigation opens its own investigation, designated PE 24-024. It covers roughly 781,000 vehicles from model years 2021 through 2023. The trigger: 9 owner questionnaires filed with the agency, 1 report describing a death and an injury, and multiple field reports, most describing fires that started with the vehicle off. Then it gets slow. In March of 2025, the agency sends a formal information request. The company answers it in May. Through the rest of that year, they buy back vehicles from owners to tear apart, pull return parts, run CT scans and X-rays on connectors. Between June and December, they run the bench tests we opened with the ones that failed. November of 2025, company and agency meet. More supplemental data. In April of this year, the company reaches its conclusion. A loose electrical connection at the pump header melts the connector, and that can lead to a fire. 28th of May, formal defect determination. 4th of June, the safety recall report gets filed. 9th of June, the public alert. 11th of June, you could finally type your own VIN into a government website and find out if you owned one. And the letters started going out the 9th of July. Count it up. From the first internal investigation to the letter in your mailbox, about 3 years and 2 months. I don't say that to accuse anybody of hiding. I say it because if you own one of these, you drove it through that entire period, and the honest description of that period is that people were doing careful engineering work while the vehicle stayed in service. Both of those things are true at once. That's uncomfortable, and it should be. Here's a smaller thing that tells you a lot about reading these documents. The agency's public alert says 51 fires. The manufacturer's own filed safety report logs 72 field reports across all markets, of which 35 are confirmed to have originated at the pump connector. 51, 72, 35, 3 numbers, 1 defect, and not one of them is wrong. They're counting different things. 72 is everything reported worldwide before anybody sorted it. 35 is what the company confirmed traced back to this specific connector. 51 is the agency's count of fires it believes are likely tied to the issue in the United States. Alleged, confirmed, and likely are 3 different categories. And any headline that gives you one number without telling you which category it's from has quietly made a choice for you. Same discipline applies to the injury question. The agency's investigation opening referenced a submitted report describing a death and an injury. The manufacturer's filed report, as of the middle of May this year, says it's aware of no accidents and 1 injury potentially related. Those are consumer-submitted allegations on one side and manufacturer-confirmed findings on the other. I'm not going to collapse them into a body count, and neither should anyone else. Now, second layer. Because a lot of Jeep owners are sitting in 2 recalls at once and don't know it. Separate from everything I've described, there's a plug-in hybrid recall. 320,065 vehicles, 228,221 Wrangler 4xe models from model years 2020 through 2025, plus 91,844 Grand Cherokee 4xe models from 2022 through 2026. Campaign number 2, 5V741. Different part, different mechanism. This one's the high-voltage battery pack cells with separator damage that can short internally and burn, parked, or driving. Same park outside instruction plus 1 more. Don't charge it because a charged pack carries more risk than a depleted one. And here's the line in that alert that should stop you cold. The agency stated the manufacturer was aware of 19 fires originating from the battery pack, including 9 in vehicles that had already received the earlier recall remedy. 9 of 19. In trucks that were supposedly already fixed. The company's own determination was that the previous remedy was ineffective at detecting certain battery abnormalities, which is why if you had that work done, you are not done. You're in the new campaign. So a 2024 Wrangler 4xe can, right now, be sitting on 2 separate fire-related park outside lists at the same time, for 2 completely unrelated reasons, under 2 different campaign numbers. If you checked your VIN once and saw 1 recall and closed the tab, go back and read the whole list. Let me give the other side its turn, because it's stronger than you'd expect. The manufacturer's position and the agency's would run roughly like this. The recall system worked exactly as designed. Owners filed complaints. The agency's defect office noticed a pattern in 9 questionnaires, 9 out of a fleet of nearly 800,000, and opened an investigation anyway. The company ran an 18-month engineering effort including vehicle buybacks and CT imaging of connectors. When the bench testing failed to reproduce the fault, they did not use that as a shield. They kept going. reached a conclusion and recalled 1 million vehicles over a defect they estimate is present in 1 in 1,000. That is an enormously expensive decision made on incomplete laboratory evidence in the direction of caution. If your model of the industry is that manufacturers only act when cornered, this doesn't fit it well. They'd add that the park outside advisory is itself conservative. When you tell 1 million owners to keep their trucks away from their houses, you are guaranteeing bad headlines and angry customers. You don't do that to manage optics. You do it because the downside of being wrong is somebody's house. And on the 3-year timeline, I've watched enough of these to know that root cause work on an intermittent, slow-developing electrical fault is genuinely hard. You cannot recall on a hunch, either. A recall issued on a wrong theory sends 1 million people to dealers for a repair that fixes nothing, while the real defect keeps burning. That's a fair argument. Honestly, most of it holds up. Here's my read on where it stops holding up, and I'll mark it as opinion so you can weigh it as opinion. The system is very good at determining. It is much weaker at protecting people during the determining. For 3 years, there was no mechanism to say to owners, "We don't know yet, but here's what we're watching, and here's the symptom that means bring it in today." That interim state doesn't really exist in the American recall structure. You're either in a recall or you're not. And while the engineering runs, you're not. And the part that isn't opinion at all, the remedy timing. The letters started in July. Getting 1 million vehicles inspected takes many months, parts flow unevenly, and until your appointment comes up, the official instruction is to park a $35,000 truck outside. If you live in an apartment complex or a snow state or a neighborhood association with rules about what sits in the driveway, or you're a woman who's been told her whole life to park in a garage at night for reasons that have nothing to do with fire, nobody has a good answer for you. Not the company, not the agency. That gap is real and it lands entirely on the owner. There's no plan here. There's a slow root cause process, a supplier connector, a statutory framework built around determination rather than warning, and 1 million people absorbing the waiting period. Aligned incentives don't need a plan. All right, receipts and what you actually do. Get a pen. First, go to NHTSA.gov/recalls and enter your 17-digit VIN. Free, official, takes 20 seconds. Your VIN is on the driver's side, dashed through the windshield, on the door jamb sticker, and on your insurance card. Do this for every vehicle in your household, not just the Jeep. That tool covers everything. Read the entire list of open recalls that comes back. Not the first one, all of them. Second, the numbers. Power steering pump fire recall, campaign 26V363, manufacturer number 21D, plug-in hybrid battery recall, campaign 25V741. If either of those appears against your VIN, that's your file. Third, the instruction while you wait is park outside, away from structures and other vehicles. On the plug-in hybrid recall, also stop charging it, and a depleted battery carries less risk than a full one. That's from the alert, not from me. Fourth, symptoms. On the steering recall, the company noted that some owners may lose power steering assist or see a service power steering message on the dash. Treat either of those as today, not next week. And if you ever smell hot plastic or an electrical burning smell around the front of the vehicle, that is not a wait-and-see smell. Fifth, the repair is free. Federally, on a safety recall, parts and labor cost you nothing, and there's no expiration on that for a defect recall. If a dealer tries to charge you for anything connected to 26V363, you're being handled wrong, and you can call the manufacturer's customer line at 800-853-1403 or the Federal Vehicle Safety Hotline at 888-327-4236. Sixth, if you already paid out of pocket to fix something that turns out to be this defect, ask about reimbursement. There's a general reimbursement plan on file for this campaign. Bring the invoice. Seventh, and this one's for anybody shopping, used vehicles can legally be sold with open recalls in most of the country. Run the VIN before you hand over money, and if there's an open park outside recall on it, get the seller to acknowledge that in writing. A seller who won't put an open federal recall in writing has just told you something useful. And if you want to go past the summary, the underlying safety recall report is public. Search the campaign number 26V363 on the agency's site and you'll get the manufacturer's own file document. Production windows, chronology, the failure modes, the number of field reports. Everything I've told you today came out of documents like that one, and the whole point of this channel is that you don't have to take my word for any of it. Go read the file. That's what I've got. A connector that got slightly loose, a test that couldn't reproduce it, a million trucks that got recalled anyway, and a system that eventually reached the right answer just slowly and with the waiting done by the people who own the vehicles. Check your VIN tonight, then check your neighbors, because roughly 1 in 1,000 of these is carrying it, and the odds don't care whose driveway it's in. The field manual's linked below if you want the rest of this, the repair math, the total loss line, what your car records. Either way, go pull the document. The document is the expert. This has been the Owner's Report.